Fit for Life Radio, episode number 130.
One dirty.
Will the Grill.
What up?
Shively checking in. Gary, not Harry. Deagle
That is
checking
true.
in. I mean,
Nah.
little bit of
Nah, man.
3 or 4 chest hairs.
3 or 4. Get out of here.
Yeah. Not like you got all the hair too. You got the grill and the hair.
Mm-hmm.
Well, enough about
Our hairy grills.
our hairy grills. Today, we're going to talk about something we've talked about a bunch before, but we realize it's been sprinkled in throughout like Q&As and other top kind of main topics on the podcast.
But we get a question about this
Weekly.
daily. Easily, yeah. So we felt like it would be a good idea to just dig in one episode wholly on intermittent fasting.
Mm-hmm.
Something that it's gotten popular. I felt like it was popular kind of when we started hearing about it.
Right. Which was, so I know I was doing it
What?
when I was at my old gym.
Yeah, same.
So probably,
10, 12 years ago?
yeah, I'll say, but 10 years ago.
Yeah, probably 10
Wow.
years.
That's crazy.
I
That's
know.
because that was when it was very fringe in the fitness world.
Mhm.
Everyone was doing it, learning about it.
And now it's like more mainstream to where like it's not just people in the fitness world.
Yeah, you get almost anyone that we meet with that just scratching the surface, and now they're intermittent fasting, right? And we'll go over why that is. We'll go over pros and cons.
Yeah, because there are pros and there are cons.
I know, and for me specifically, like there's things I learned that I've carried with me forever and that have
Yes.
made a huge impact. And then there's, reasons I don't do it, and it's kind of like normal, what people refer to it as nowadays. And let you figure out for yourself where it lands.
Yeah.
We'll start with what is intermittent
Yeah,
fasting.
let's define it for everybody.
Typically, when people read it online, books, intermittent fasting, the common setup is, you have a shortened window of eating. So an amount of time where you can eat, and outside of that, you kind of have a hardline rule, I'm not eating anything.
Yeah, no calories.
The common setup is 16-hour fast, 8-hour eating window, and even more specific, people would normally do that between noon and 8, right? So they don't eat, they sleep, they wake up, don't eat till noon, then they break their fast and have their meals between noon and 8 p.m. So that'd be an 8-hour eating window, and then the rest of the time, 16 hours, you're fasting.
So if you're listening and you're like, I haven't eaten breakfast in 20 years,
Mm-hmm.
you've been intermittent fasting most likely and not even known it.
So technically, if you last eat at 10 p.m. and go to bed and wake up at 6 a.m. and then start eating right away, you're still technically intermittent fasting for the time you're sleeping. It's probably not ideal to be eating all the time because most of America does, and
look where we are.
We're trending, to be obese. So that's where a great way intermittent fasting can work is, you do apply some boundaries to your eating.
Yeah, there's structure. Like there's hard rules.
So if naturally you say, I'm going to eat in these less times, and you're used to eating all day, you may end up then eating less overall, which then may lead to weight loss, right? Which then weight loss through calorie restriction has benefits, known specific benefits. And that's where things get like muddy, is that the consensus is, general consensus, and what they, through various studies and things like that, is that it's very hard to separate the benefits of intermittent fasting from the benefits of caloric restriction, right? So essentially, if intermittent fasting, that structure, that meal structure, helps you lose weight, lose fat, that's when you see the benefits, right?
Yeah.
The thing is, and this is what people hope for, is that it's magic, right? So, if I just eat between these times, all the good stuff will happen,
Yeah,
right?
just because I'm eating between the times.
But if you're eating, say, 6,000 calories a day, even in that 8 hours.
It doesn't matter
or 4
how long
hours,
your window is.
Yeah, it's not going to matter, right? And what happens, we've seen this happen, we meet with people all the time, is it actually does the reverse for people. Because they put on this restriction, they almost panic and they think about food more, and they almost develop, or you can develop, eating disorders from it, to where, it's you're so famished, you put in so much effort to get to break this fast, and you end up binging.
Yeah, you're in like this very like restrict and binge cycle where like you're not eating all day and all you can think about is food, and you just go ham because you're just like ravenous at that point.
And there's also hormonal things that can make you that way.
Yes.
In general, so obviously that's a con, right? In general, too, women don't do as well because their hormones, are a little different. So when they don't eat, it can affect things. Men typically seem to do better on it. But yeah, so there's lots of influence and factors. So before we dive too much into specific pros and cons, again, intermittent fasting is restricting the amount of time you eat to like this like specific time frame. It can help with eating less because we have less time to eat. But again, you can also still overeat in the small frames, and and there's no magic to it, right? At its root, it's a structure. It's an eating structure, and if it supports overall healthy eating, and that you're able to achieve and maintain a healthy body composition, and it feels sustainable in that structure,
then it's awesome.
It's gold, right? So, as with anything, the answer is really it depends, and you need to find out for yourself.
And it depends on you and how you are.
Yeah. So now, first, I guess we'll just share. So, 10 years ago when I was doing it, typical 16-8. And, at first, you'll notice, when you don't eat, you get this, like, sharp mental acuity, right? And you feel really, like, on point. But really what's happening with that is you're just experiencing cortisol surges that's not stopping, right? And it's not like,
and probably layered with some adrenaline too.
Yeah,
depending on
because
how
your body's
wired.
like, you need to go find food.
Yeah.
So it actually heightens all those things. So it's not that you have more energy. It's not more energy. It's just literally like more adrenaline.
You're getting juiced up.
More stress.
Yeah.
Now, over time, and I probably did it for like a year or two, a year and a half. But I would notice, and at first you just ignore things, but I would get very shaky and very anxious, and just kind of fight through it. But eventually for me, adding breakfast back in solved that. And I'm the type where I'm more sympathetic dominant, so I am going to be fight or flight. I don't need to add more stress.
More adrenaline to your day.
Like I need to balance it out the other way. So for me, I'm much more stable, more mental acuity, more focused, more streamlined when I, say, have breakfast and help stop that process. So there are some people who are wired different.
Opposite.
They're super chill, super parasympathetic almost, to where, those people typically handle caffeine way more. They made intermittent fasting to create that adrenaline and cortisol spike.
To where, they feel like maybe a little bit more alert and sharp, but not anxious like you were. And I would, kind of be the exact same way. And, and that actually kind of maybe works as a tool for them where they're like, you know what, I don't eat in the morning and I feel great and I'm sharp for work. And there's no real con to it for them. And I think that can be awesome. Yeah,
so there's a pro and con right there. For one, how are you wired? And then it's going to depend that right there off the bat. If I was coaching someone, that's going to be the first indicator of like, is this a great or a bad idea?
Yeah.
Another pro or con is, so yes, obviously, if you have a smaller eating window, you have less time to get your calories in. You may need less meals, but you could have bigger meals, right? So you could have, and we've had a lot of successful clients use intermittent fasting approach 16-8. And it was because they're typically, guys who want to lose body fat and pretty, big in general, like their frame, like 6 feet, maybe even bigger, 5, And so, they can handle a decent amount of calories to lose weight, say like 2,000. But then by having fasting, maybe just 2 meals a day. So they kind of break their fast at noon and have like a dinner at 6 p.m. You could have 2 1,000 calorie meals.
But that's a lot of food,
That's a lot.
especially if you're eating like whole foods.
That's a lot of food, right? So, yeah, they can go through the morning, maybe busy, working, weren't breakfast eaters anyways. Yeah, they just have some coffee, don't even notice it. Oh, it's time to eat. Get to have this huge meal. And then, yeah, it's going to keep you feeling fuller and satiated longer. And then, yeah, it's dinner time. You could have another big meal.
And that probably carries them through till lunch the next day because it was a substantial amount and they're fine.
And it makes it easier, right? And they're not, they're able to stick with that 2,000 calorie deficit long enough to, and then, oh yeah, I'm losing fat. My waist measurement's going down, and yeah, voila, perfect. It was a very helpful approach versus say they took that same 2,000 calories and did like the old school. I'm gonna break this into six
meals
small
a day.
meals, right? So then say each meal is
300-ish
calories, and then you have to have them all prepared. You have to stop and eat them. It's like I'm eating at 6 a.m., I'm eating at 9 a.m., I'm eating at noon, I'm eating at 3 p.m., I'm eating at 6 p.m., right? Those would result in the same outcome because it's 2,000 calories and say the protein's equal. But obviously, that's 2 different lifestyles, right? So if the intermittent fasting 2 meal, you could have the 2 bigger meals, is more sustainable and enjoyable, that is the way to go, right? Versus, oh, well, let me eat right when I wake up, 6 meals, break it. And then you're maybe more sad because the meals are only 300 calories.
Yeah. And they're not as satisfied of an experience.
Yeah. So that's another, but say some people, they like to be grazing all day.
They do.
They
Some people
want
are
to be.
grazers.
They had to, and they don't like eating huge meals, right? So in that case, the intermittent fasting's not going to be
It might not be for
helpful.
you. And you know what? I think some people that are more grazers might struggle to eat the big meal. Like they might not even finish it and might not enjoy trying to eat that much food. And then it turns into work for them trying to shovel all this food down.
Yep.
And that's not going to be sustainable either.
Yeah. And then I know for me, so to share my experience, so yeah, that was a con, back to, it made me jittery, shaky. A pro was, originally way back 15 years ago, that was the thought, was like, you have to eat every 3 hours to stoke your metabolism. You have to eat right when you wake up or your muscle's going to waste away.
If you know me, you know I'm always on the run, up early and home late. So having a 3-hour morning routine isn't really in the cards for me. What is in the cards is AG1. It's a fast way to get vitamins and minerals I need to perform. I first gave AG1 a try because I wanted a single solution that helps support my entire body by filling in nutrient gaps and simplifying my morning routine. Since drinking AG1 daily, I've always felt strong and energized and ready to attack the day. Not only does AG1 deliver my daily dose of vitamins, minerals, pre- and probiotics, and more, it's a powerful, healthy habit that's also powerfully simple. It's 1 scoop mixed in water once a day and every day. I know that AG1 is giving my body high-quality nutrition. Every batch of AG1 goes through a rigorous testing process, so you know that it's safe. And AG1 ingredients are sourced for absorption, potency, and nutrition density. AG1 is a supplement that I trust to provide the support my body needs daily, and that's why I'm excited to welcome them as a new partner. Here is your chance to start every day this season with a gift to yourself. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3K2 and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase exclusively at drinkag1.com/provengrit. That's drinkag1.com/provengrit. Check it out. If you know me, you know I'm always on the run, up early and home late. So having a 3-hour morning routine isn't really in the cards for me. What is in the cards is AG1. It's a fast way to get vitamins and minerals I need to perform. I first gave AG1 a try because I wanted a single solution that helps support my entire body by filling in nutrient gaps and simplifying my morning routine. Since drinking AG1 daily, I've always felt strong and energized and ready to attack the day. Not only does AG1 deliver my daily dose of vitamins, minerals, pre- and probiotics, and more, it's a powerful, healthy habit that's also powerfully simple. It's 1 scoop mixed in water once a day and every day. I know that AG1 is giving my body high-quality nutrition. Every batch of AG1 goes through a rigorous testing process, so you know that it's safe. And AG1 ingredients are sourced for absorption, potency, and nutrition density. AG1 is a supplement that I trust to provide the support my body needs daily, and that's why I'm excited to welcome them as a new partner. Here is your chance to start every day this season with a gift to yourself. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3K2 and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase exclusively at drinkag1.com/provengrit. That's drinkag1.com/provengrit. Check it out.
So yeah, I create like, oh yeah, this is how I have to be. But it was a pain in the butt.
It's the worst.
You had to pack these meals and carry them with you, and you would get anxiety over, oh my gosh, 3 hours have gone by, I have to eat something, right? So you'd be doing stuff, and that's on your mind. That was an unhealthy relationship and mindset. But I don't want to lose muscle, right? So when I went to intermittent fasting, I didn't lose muscle. That didn't happen, right? It wasn't an issue. So now, I'm not eating till noon, and I'm not eating every 3 hours, and it's fine.
Yeah, it's less to worry about.
So, whereas I had, the jitters and the shakiness, but it gave me a little more freedom with, hey, I can miss a meal. Hey, I don't have to eat the second I wake up.
Mm-hmm.
And those have been things that have stuck with me since then, like lessons that I took with me to then craft my own personal approach, which is kind of a moderate thing between those two, which is I like to eat at like just 3 meals a day, so they're still a little bit bigger.
But with a good bit of time in between.
But more time in between, and basically having a breakfast. So I'll eat, at like 6 a.m., so like an hour and a half after I wake up, and sometimes it's 7, So yeah, no major rush. And then, like noon, lunch, and dinner. And it works well because our society's set up that way. So it's typically normal to hey, you're at home, eat breakfast at home, eat dinner at home, and then everyone kind of takes a break naturally for lunch. So I found for me, the combination of, avoiding those super long stretches of not eating and getting into that sympathetic state is helpful to avoid. But I still get, by having only 3 meals versus say like 6, they get to be a little larger. I don't have to eat the second I wake up. Yeah, I landed on an approach that worked for me by experimenting and having negative things happen, but, learning along the way.
Yeah. And we probably ran it about the same time, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
And I ended up doing it a bit later, not even really on purpose, but there was a point where I was training a little bit later in the day. Like I prefer to train early, like 6:30, 7 a.m. if I can. But at the time I was training at like, I think 10 a.m., and I didn't really like to eat before, so I just ate lunch afterwards. Mm-hmm. And I ended up just doing, almost like a 16-8 because of where my training was during my day. So I'd eat a big lunch, big dinner, and that dinner would generally carry me through till my training the next day, and I felt okay. So I just kind of naturally did it, not by saying like, oh, I'm going to intermittent fast. It just kind of fell into it. Mm-hmm. And I liked it. Like overall, it wasn't that bad of an experience for me. If I had been doing it and training early in the day, like say I was doing a 16-8 and starting at noon and finishing at 8 p.m., but also getting up at like 5 in the morning and training at 6, that would not have worked for me at all. And that can be another con for some people, is that like it just doesn't fit into the way you work out. Like if you find that not eating at all before you work out, you feel a little bit shaky or just a little bit weaker, or maybe your goal is to just like put on some weight, it might not serve you as well as having a breakfast beforehand or, eating closer to your training. So that's another thing to consider too, is like, how do I feel when I work out like this? Because some people might feel a little shaky or lightheaded, or, their performance just might not be what they want it to be. So it's just another thing to consider when you're doing intermittent fasting.
I think a big and simple way to think of it and realize is that it is a stressor. Like going longer periods of time without eating is a stressor. So also if other areas of your life already supply a lot of stress, you're a parent, you have a full-time job, there's bills, there's, all the things in life that can cause stress, it will be more likely that an extreme intermittent fasting approach will not be sustainable and as helpful, because it is going to provide more stress onto what you're doing. Yes. And that's where, too, it can be a negative if you're an athlete if you're like a runner, if you're, a serious like, power lifter, CrossFitter, younger athlete, there's very few pros because meal timing becomes more important in those scenarios, and getting, this influx of nutrients into your bloodstream through eating throughout the day becomes more important. So that's something to keep in mind as well. So in general, the main advantages of intermittent fasting are it allows for larger meals and more flexibility, right? So if larger meals and less frequent meals, and could be convenient for one's lifestyle and preferences.
Yeah.
On the flip side, so some cons are it's not ideal for athletes in muscle growth, specifically at like an elite level. And I think another con is that there's a lot of like insane people who do it and tout it as this like magic thing.
The Holy Grail.
So then people start thinking, well, they see it as like a thing, right? If I intermittent fast, I'll lose weight because like it's a magic thing.
Not that this method allows me to restrict my calories and lose weight. Exactly.
The intermittent fasting does not cause, say, fat loss.
It's just a structure that can allow you to do that.
If intermittent fasting enables you to eat less, consume less calories, and that leads to a caloric deficit, then that's what's leading to the weight loss, right? So it can be helpful, again, from a meal structure that works for someone to support that, but it's not the thing in and of itself. But there's always going to be people that tout it as that, and then people think it's this magic thing, and then I'm going to intermittent fast, but it's really not good for their lifestyle. They're stressing the whole time. They get to noon, then they're not prepared to eat. Then they binge on vending machine stuff and
gas station food or
gas
whatever.
Station that's available. And now they're creating a cycle of still poor eating, now restriction and binge, and
so just layering one more like bad relationship with food and eating.
Yeah, so it can be a problem. There are very serious consequences and cons.
I kind of just thought of another pro. We kind of touched on the con a little earlier, but one pro of it that I personally kind of felt is when you don't eat for a period of time, you can get a little bit of a better handle on your hunger cues and what hungry actually feels like versus maybe being bored or searching for some dopamine. So that is one thing you can get from it. On the flip side, though, it can turn into a poor relationship with food where instead of maybe just calmly recognizing that you're hungry, you tend to binge hard on food because you're restricting yourself.
Yeah.
So that can definitely go both ways, and I think it depends on the person and the personality. But that's one thing that I got from it is it did help me with being like, am I actually hungry right now? Because you go long enough with not eating, after weeks or months of doing it, you realize what hunger really is.
Yeah. And that's where the reality is. So for practical takeaways and what we suggest from our experience working with people, everything's on a bell curve.
Always.
Right? So, bell curve, you can visualize that where, it kind of starts lower and then majority kind of goes up into this curve. So most people are somewhere in the moderate middle. And then you have the extremes, right? So, some people are going to do really good with intermittent fasting, 2 meals a day on one end of the bell curve. Some people will do well with, eating every 3 hours, 6 meals a day.
Being grazers.
But most people, or at least as a starting point, end up
right in the middle, baby.
The middle's a good place. 3 square meals,
3 meals a day.
Cut out mindless snacking. This way you're getting food at kind of these consistent intervals, but there's still a decent amount of space in between the meals, so you can notice and feel and name, hunger, true hunger, and you don't have to like stop and panic and get something to eat all the time. A meal's coming, so that ends up being your meal's gonna still be decently sized. It's convenient. Like a lot of people will force that intermittent fasting where they don't eat till noon, but then the reality is they're at work, they're out, so they're then starving and their resources for good options is limited.
And you're hungry, so you're not being as logical about it as maybe you should be.
Whereas most of us start out the day at home, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you can have food in your house to support what you're trying to do. You can it's easier to make a meal and, have a higher protein and fibrous meal to set yourself up to where you're not starving later on.
Yeah.
So yeah, most people in our experience of working with like busy adults is it ends up being better for them to be able to prepare and start the day with this positive step, having a high protein meal at home. Tends to be a better habit, a better structure than intermittent fasting.
Yeah, because the reality is for a lot of people, lunch is so up in the air.
So, yeah. And now, in our experience, again, working with all kinds of people, typically guys who want to lose body fat and are, average to a larger frame, like 5'9", 5'10", to, taller. So typically means they handle a little more calories to actually diet. They seem to do well with the intermittent fasting approach.
Yeah, I agree.
They like the bigger meals. They like not having to think about and prepare food much. And the options then eating out become more plentiful because they can handle more food, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like, oh yeah, you can go to Chipotle and get a double beef burrito bowl and it's not 900 calories. That's perfect. Like that fits right into one of your two meals. Whereas someone smaller, say 5'5", 5'4" Sally, who has to, maybe diet on 1,600 calories, 1,500 calories.
That's a lot.
It starts, now all of a sudden
Starts to eat into it.
It's more. So it's tougher for depending on the person of the options you have available when you're eating out. So, hey, probably better off preparing a small breakfast that can be more, food volume, set you up nicer. But those, again, are just starting points from experience. Like I said, there's pros and cons. At the end of the day, it's about realizing that you have to budget your food some way. You have to bring awareness to your overall intake.
Yep.
And that is the principle and key number one, that total caloric intake, food intake. Way down the list is then your meal timing, meal structure. That's what intermittent fasting is.
Yeah.
It's just a way to structure how you eat, to provide some guidelines, guardrails, and rules, which are all great things, provided they support something that you can consistently do and helps you be successful.
It's got to be for you. Who you are, your personality, your routine, all of that. So don't try to fit into a box that you don't fit in.
Yeah, and just because something worked for someone else, if anyone tells you have to do this thing, oh my gosh, this is the holy grail, run the other way.
Yeah.
Because like we said, even stuff that we can't even control, the way we're wired and our hormonal setup is going to affect these things. So something like intermittent fasting that could have, for someone, oh my gosh, it worked for them. They're going to scream to the rooftops. Guess what you don't hear?
All the people it didn't work for.
Yeah. When things don't work for people, those people don't want to go because they're typically just going to be told they did it wrong, things like that. You don't hear that. So when someone, again, is saying, this is what worked for me, that doesn't mean you have to do it and that it's even going to work for you.
Yeah.
Again, like we just said, experiment and try, but don't think that there's a magic fix. The magic fix is figuring out you. Intermittent fasting may be that.
And it may not.
And it may not. And it may not be that in a way that it helps teach you a lesson and moves you closer to what is it.
And that's something that we forget sometimes is like sometimes you need to try something, realize it's not for you, but also like there are takeaways to any situation.
Yep.
Like it could be trying a nutritional approach and you decide, what, overall this isn't for me, but like I learned that I do like having space between my meals and it allows me to set up my day. Or you try a style of training and you're like, overall, like that's not for me, but I did like X, Y, and Z, and I think that would be a good foundation for me. So there's always takeaways to something, even if we find that it's not for us. So, it is worth trying some things and realizing maybe this is not, what's good for me.
All right. Well, hopefully that leaves you feeling more confident about, what exactly intermittent fasting is and how you can apply it or not apply it to your life. If you want, as always, we have a free Facebook group, Fat Loss Secrets for Busy Adults. You can kind of search for it on Facebook or we'll link to it as well in the show notes. We're in there We provide guides available for, questions. Cool community in there. So hit that up. Let us know. Does intermittent fasting, is that your jam?
Yes. Have you found success with it?
Bad experience, good experience? We'd be interested to hear. Let us know.
Yeah.
And thanks for listening.
Yeah. We'll catch you guys next time. As always, thanks for listening, guys. If you want to learn more, check us out at coastalfitnessva.com or garydeagle.com. We'll see you next time.